Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah amma ba'd. It's brilliant to be here in Liverpool. My sister actually just lives around the corner. So this area is quite familiar to me. They used to live on that side first, and then they went up in the world and they moved to Cairn Street, and who knows where they'll go next. So it's brilliant to always come here. Inshallah, what we'll be talking about today is all things to do with money, investments, finance. But before we get into that, I'm more interested, to be honest, in talking to you about why we talk about this stuff. And let me give you my story to give you a sense of how I think about it. So as Brother Mu'in said, I studied philosophy, politics, and economics at Oxford, met my co-founder Muhsin at university, and then I went into doing Islamic finance, masters in Islamic finance, did my Alamiyya, and then was in corporate law for a few years, and then IFG started as a community project. And really the thing that was at the back of my mind and was driving this journey for me is something that I think is critical for all of us to bear in mind today. And that is that our strength as a Muslim community, part of it is economic. And it's really, really vivid to us today when we see what the events are like in Palestine and what's happening there. The darahim, the money, the economic power, it speaks. There's a poem of Imam Shafi'i, وَأَنْطَقَتِ الدَّرَاهِمُ بَعْدَ صَمْتٍ أُنَاسٍ بَعْدَمَا كَانُوا سُكُوتًا. So the darahim, they made speak people who were otherwise quiet because they had economic power. And unfortunately today, Muslims, when we think about it from an economic perspective, are basically silent. And you can see that from you can see that from a geopolitical perspective. And what we need to do in the short term to deal with a problem like Gaza and the issues that we're facing there is one thing. But then what we must do for the long term to avoid these kind of situations even arising in the first place is the conversation that we're going to have today. Because this is a problem that can't be solved but with a long-term mindset. To kind of emphasize the point around the importance of thinking from an ummah perspective, I'd love to get a show of hands. Anyone have a sense of what the average net worth of an individual is across the world? The average net worth of an individual in the world. Any ideas? Average net worth. I'll pick on people. Brother? Have a guess. Anywhere, yeah. One individual. What's the average net worth of that individual? 25,000. Any takers? Any advances on that? 35? 45. Going once, going twice. Any takers? 5. Okay, so the answer is, for the average, globally, Muslims and non-Muslims, is $80,000. Now, the average for the Muslim is $16,000. That's a 5x differential between the two. So mathematically put, the problem that is in front of us today is how do we go from 16,000 to 80,000? That's the goal. And we as a community, I would encourage all of us to think about, your wealth, Muhammad or Mu'in or other people's wealth is not Muhammad and Mu'in's wealth. It's a portion of the wealth of the ummah that has been entrusted to us that we are custodians for, and ultimately we will, leave it behind us, right? So I want us to think with an eternal timeline, not with a timeline of this is the dunya and that's it. Think with an eternal timeline, and I think that's quite a freeing effect. And then, of course, this is something that we get questioned about on the Day of Judgment. How do we earn our wealth? How do we spend it? This is a critical question 5 things will be questioned before we are even allowed to move from our spot on the Day of Judgment, and money is definitely one of them. So let me whiz through this because I want to leave plenty of time for Q&A. I've kind of already explained what we do at IFG, but the thought process is we want to help Muslims level up, go from 16,000 to 80,000. How do we do it? Well, the first way we do it is having conversations like this, education, right? Raising awareness that this is even an issue. And the second thing that we do is we help people find investments and make investments, so hopefully they can actually start growing their pot. We've been lucky enough to have a book published. Sheikh Yasir Qadi, Sheikh Haytham Al-Haddad, Mufti Faraz Adam, Haris Irfan, and lots of others have said nice things about it. We've got some copies at the back, and all profits will be going to the masjid as a donation. So feel free to help yourselves on that. Let me continue. So if you take away nothing from today, take away this one mathematical formula, and it will really help you with your life. And the mathematical formula goes as follows. Income minus expenditure equals savings. Income minus expenditure equals savings. So here's a maths question for you. How can we increase our savings? There's 2 ways. Investment, but if you follow the formula, income minus expenditure equals savings. So what could we do with the income? We could increase the income and decrease the expenditure. Jazakallahu khairan. If you need maths tuition, then the brother at the back, he's the person to go to. So that's how you increase your savings. And if you think about it, what we are all trying to do with our investments is trying to increase our savings, trying to increase the pot of money that we have. But there's a problem. And the problem is that we all think that, oh, brother, look, I'm going to retire at the age of 35, and I'm going to be financially free. I will have no problems after that. I'll be retired at the age of 35. And then you actually ask him, how much are you saving per month? How much are you saving per year? Oh, brother, I'm only saving £2,000 a month. Oh, sorry, £2,000 a year. So, and he's now, let's say he's 25. So £2,000 a year is what he's saving up. Over 10 years, that's £20,000. £20,000 at the age of 35 is not going to be enough to be financially free, because let's just say that he invests that £20,000 and he makes 10% back. So he makes back £2,000 every year. £2,000, is that enough to live off? Of course not, right? And so this person, his aspiration, his goal of financial freedom doesn't match with the reality of his finances. And so you've got a problem. And the way that you adjust that is one of 2 things. Either you adjust the goal and you say maybe not 35, maybe 55, right? You adjust the goal, or you adjust the maths. You say, I need to increase my income, right? If I'm actually going to retire at the age of 35, I probably need a few £100,000, probably £500,000 at least, £500,000, maybe £1 million. And in order for me to get there, I need to be able to save maybe 20, 30, 40,000, £50,000 a year in order to get there, right? And it might be some people might say, actually, you know what? That's not realistic for me, right? That I'm a school teacher. That's not realistic for me. And you know what? That's perfectly fine, because in this life we don't measure success by the pound sign, right? We measure success by who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bless in the akhirah. And you could achieve your Jannah by being a great math teacher and not being financially free all of your life. That's perfectly fine. But then make sure that you set the goal right as well, right? Make sure that you adjust your goal and set it according to what you are trying to achieve. So income minus expenditure equals savings. Now let's whiz through this really quickly. First step, we want to clear our personal debts. The reason why we want to clear our personal debts is because if you've already got a bit of a debt, then you're never going to get into the savings bit at all, because all of that is going to go in the debt. And of course, if it's an interest-based loan, then that has other problems with it from an Islamic perspective. The next thing you do is you save up a small pot that you can draw on in times of emergency. because we saw in COVID-19 what kind of emergencies can happen without any expectation. So having a small pot that you can easily call on is a good idea. The next thing after that you do, for most people, it is usually to get onto the property ladder. Any ideas why getting onto the property ladder is such a good idea? Thoughts? It generates passive income, but if you, let's say you didn't have a property that you own and you live in, what would you do instead? Yeah, so let's say the house that you're living in, you don't own that house. You don't have the money. What do you have to do instead? Rent, right? And the problem with rent is that all of that money, you're never going to see it again. You know, you wave goodbye to the rent every single month and that's it. And we did the numbers, we did the maths, and over 25, 30 years, the difference can be hundreds and thousands of pounds between someone who's just rented that entire time and someone who's bought a property. Because the way that our financial system is, it benefits people who own assets, because our money is a figment of our imagination. Our money is just what the government says it's the value of, right? And so there's inflation, and our money decreases in value over time. But if you own assets, if you own bricks and mortar, if you own a property, then your value will stay steady, and it will actually stay there over a period of 20, 30 years. And so you wouldn't lose that value. So this is why it's a good idea to try and get yourself on the property ladder, if you can, as quickly as possible. And then the final thing that you should do is you should start investing. And I'll talk to you a little bit about some ideas about how you can, do some nipping and tucking and tactics and strategies throughout your life that can make a big difference. So if hands up who has either been to university, in university, or has family in university. Okay, so many people, right? And university is expensive these days. But if I told you that if you just invested £50 per month from the day that your child was born, by the time your child is 18, you have probably saved enough to put him through at least 1 year and possibly 2 or even 3 years of university. That's the power of starting early and being strategic at a key point. Because when you have a child, everyone's really happy. You're thinking about the aqiqah, you're thinking about where you're going to get the zabihah done, you're thinking about all of the presents. But the one thing you're not thinking about is his university. But if you thought about that, then actually that can make a big difference. The next thing that you could do is when you start your job, make sure that you are signing up for your pension. Moeen will like this because he works in pensions. If you sign up for pensions, you will benefit because you're effectively, if you don't sign up for a pension, you're giving up money. Because your employer, let's say I work for, this company that makes bottled water, Dalga, right? I work for this company. If I work for this company and I contribute to my pension, then they also have to contribute to my pension as well. If I don't contribute to my pension, they don't have to contribute to my pension as well. And that means that we are leaving money on the table, which Dalga will benefit from. So getting a pension is usually a very good idea for most people. And of course, it's helpful when you get to your retirement and you can retire with it as well. The next thing, getting an Islamic will sorted. So if you die today in the beautiful land of England and Wales, then your affairs after your death will be decided by English and Welsh law. It will not be decided by Islamic law. And so that means that the very first thing that you are doing in the barzakh or in the akhirah is something that is contradiction to Islamic law. So you definitely don't want to do that. You want to make sure that your money and your affairs and your estate is distributed according to Islamic law. And you can do that by getting an Islamic will done. So there are free wills that you can get done completely for free. We've got a list of them on our website. If you've got a slightly larger estate, that you can get a paid will done. We do it and other people do it, like I-wills, and there's a number of solicitors. I'm sure there's local solicitors as well that do it. And then if you've got a much larger estate, perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with wealth and you've got millions of pounds, then you should get something done by an expert in tax to make sure that you're saving as much tax as possible. So that's Islamic wills. And then I would say another point is marriage. I don't know what I get the sense that there's a good, I think, mashallah, Somali and Yemeni community and, Arab community here. So I'm Pakistani and my co-founder Mohsin is Gujarati. Now, you should go for weddings. I don't know what the Arab community is like, but you should do weddings like the Gujaratis do weddings, right? And not like the Pakistanis do weddings. Because the Pakistani weddings, they cost £50,000. I went to Bradford and there was this orange Lamborghini that drove past. And then I was like, all right, that's a bit odd. In a terraced houses, small road, bright orange Lamborghini that drives past. And I'm thinking, drug dealer, right? And then another one drives past. And then another one, and another one. I'm like, what is going on here? It was basically what is called a barat, right? The procession going to the wedding. So they'd hired all these orange Lamborghinis to do this. So don't do that. Don't hire the helicopter. Don't hire all of the other stuff. Do what the Gujaratis do. So I went to this incredible wedding where the Gujaratis, they don't even hire waiters, it's self-service, right? So they get the floor mat, and you go in on one side, you get handed the plate, they give you dar chawal, that's their standard food, and you eat it, and then you move on, that's it, next conveyor belt. And they have probably as many people as in the Pakistani wedding as well, but it costs a lot less. And the difference, and this is what the interesting point is, the average Asian wedding, if it costs 50,000, and you take 35,000 pounds of that, and you invested it, and you only spent 15,000 pounds on the wedding, right? Even 15,000 is a lot, but let's say you spent 15,000 pounds on the wedding. 35,000 pounds invested over 20 years, you're going to be able to put 2 or 3 children that this couple has through university debt-free. So in one situation, the brother, he takes out a credit card loan and he puts debt on himself and causes stress on himself. And in the other situation, there's no loan there, and he's freed 2 or 3 other families from loans entirely. So this is, again, a strategic move that you can make, and it will make a massive difference to not just you, but your entire generation afterwards as well. Okay, and then of course you should shop around. We've talked about pensions. So I'll talk about the fun stuff around investing as well, and I'll keep it pretty quick. So the first thing is, this is Warren Buffett. He's one of the richest people in the world. And Warren Buffett, he actually started investing at the age of 14 with $5,000. And now he's in his 90s, and he is worth over $100 billion. And this is because wealth compounds over time. It attracts more wealth. Think of it like a snowball. I went to, there's a Henley Hill, I think it's called, in London. And my son, he started throwing snowballs at me. So I tried, look, don't do that. Roll this down the hill. And he started rolling it down the hill. And the last turns at the bottom picked up the most amount of snow because the snowball was already really big. So it attracts more snow on it in a faster way than it did right at the top. And so this is why you see this hockey stick effect with wealth. And so this is why it's important to be consistent and start early, right? Even this is an Islamic principle as well, right? حَبُّ الْأَعْمَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَدْوَمُهَا وَإِنْ قَلَّ. The most beloved of actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most consistent of them, even if it is a little bit. And this is kind of an investment principle as well. The next thing, invest like the 1%. So in my background, I was a corporate lawyer, and I used to work in funds formation. And so I got to see how people like the founders of Microsoft and Google and Amazon, they were investing their money, because I would actually see the funds that they were investing their money into. And I can tell you that they were not investing money like we as individuals invest our money. They were investing their money differently in 2 ways. The first is that they were investing their money in a lot of different things. And unfortunately, many of us, we don't even invest. And when we do invest, we only invest in a few different things. The second thing that they did was they were investing in both public markets and private markets. And I'll explain what that means in just a second. But what the outcome of this was that these people, they have a safer portfolio because they've spread all of their risk, all of their eggs are not in one basket, and also they usually get a better return overall as well because they're able to access some of these investments that have a higher return because they've actually, gone out and found them. And I'll talk to you about how we can access those investments as well. This is where our investment arm comes in. And then the final thing is that many of you will ask me, oh, brother, after all of this conversation, someone will stick a hand up and they'll ask a question, brother, what crypto should I invest in? Or is it the right time to invest in the stock market? Or what stock should I invest in? And my answer really is, it's not about what you are investing in. It's actually the time that you've been in that market, right? So don't really think about getting in at the right time and exiting at the right time. If the experts are not good at doing that, if the experts don't know that, then you're definitely not going to know that, right? So instead, invest based on facts. And if you look at the stock market over 20 years, the stock market goes up like this. So if you just invested in a halal basket of stocks and you just held that for a long period of time, you would make a profit, right? It's as simple as that. And for most people, unless you're sad and lonely like I am and like to actually invest and research and do all these things and look at spreadsheets, for most people, you just invest, forget about it, and and go on have a kapsa or something, right? Have a great time and don't worry too much about investment. Okay, so in terms of the actual investment options that you've got in front of you, there are three main buckets, there are three main types of investments that you can make. The first is in the public markets. It's called stocks and shares. So this is where you've got large companies, let's say for example BP or Shell or GlaxoSmithKline or certain pharmacies or Sainsbury's. These are large companies and they have listed onto something called the stock exchange, and you can buy those company shares and they will give you a small profit every single year out of that. And the company, if it does well, the price of it goes up. If it doesn't do well, the price goes down. And this is quite easy to buy and quite easy to exit from as well. And most of our pensions will be sat in stocks and shares. So that's stocks and shares. Then you've got something called fixed income or property. And this is the one that all of us know, right? This is the one that the uncles have always said, look, you need to invest in property. And you know what? About the uncles, they were right. Investing in property is a good idea, and you should have a portion of your investment in property as well and in income-generating investments. And then the final bucket is something called alternative assets. So this is, I don't know if many of you have watched Lion King. I think it's allowed for you to be able to admit that you've watched Lion King because it's PG, right? So Lion King, there's a scene where Simba asks about there's this kind of dark patch, and then his dad says, you must never go there, Simba, right? So this is alternative assets. Alternative assets is not actually that bad, but alternative assets is the more higher risk, higher reward end of the spectrum. So things like investing in cryptocurrency would be an example of that. Things like investing in technology startups, very early stage companies that may explode or they may become like Facebook, right? So you've got a lot of high risk, high reward. It could go bust, it could go boom as well. And you've got other types of investments in there as well. So there's the three big buckets of investments that you can put yourself into. And what you should do, and this is the next really important thing, right? Because many of us, when we make investments, how do we make investments? When we make investments, it's, well, look, something came to me. Shaukat, my brother-in-law, he came to me and he said, I'm investing in this thing. It's quite interesting. Do you want to invest with me? And I said, all right, yeah, why not? Let me invest. And that's how most of us, we do our investing. But there's a problem with that. The problem is, it's like getting into your car in the morning and not knowing where you're going, and you just start driving. You don't know where you're going, you don't know how much petrol you need, you don't know when you need to get out, you don't know anything. You don't know what car you need, but you're just going, right? That's the problem with investing without a plan. And so every investment, you need to think about, what are you trying to actually achieve? Like if you're trying to save for a house in 3 years' time, you need to invest in something that you can get out of in 3 years' time. You need to invest in something where that money is not going to potentially go to zero in 3 years' time. But if you're investing for your retirement in 45 years' time, then you can take a little bit more risk. So you see, you have to kind of balance it with the goal that you have in mind. And usually, this means that you have to have some kind of diversified portfolio. And this will look different for different people, but this would be an example of, a kind of portfolio. The bulk of it in steady, income type stuff. A portion of it might be in stocks and shares. A portion of it might be in alternatives. A portion of it might be in cash as well. Okay, and then, so we've got an investment app, investment platform where you can invest. And the whole idea behind it, if you remember back to Jeff Bezos and the Gates Foundation and all of those, elite investors. So as a lawyer, I was looking at these people investing, and I was seeing that as Muslims, as individuals, we don't have access to this stuff. So how can we get access? Because the minimum investments required for these kind of deals is sometimes 5 million, 10 million, even higher in many cases. And so if we have, £5,000, £10,000 to invest, we can't even get access to that. But this is where what we set up was Curate Capital. So it's a authorized, FCA authorized fund that pools everyone's wealth together, and it allows you to invest in a Sharia compliant way where we then take care of all of that negotiation and getting you access into the interesting stuff, and then we pass that money back to you using an app. Alhamdulillah, we managed today about $90 or so million, and we have about £5 million invested every single month through the platform, and inshallah we continue growing that. It's when we compare it to where we need to be as a Muslim community, it's very much just the start. Let me flick through all the rest of this because I want to leave enough time for Q&A. The final thing that I would really say is the following. Our world, it's, if you put on your X-ray vision, right? If you're like RoboCop or like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator, you put on your X-ray vision and you can see the world in a different light. And actually what I see in front of me is economic transactions, right? I see a camera, that was worth some money. I see this masjid, this cost money to build. I see this laptop. All of these things are economic transactions, economic relationships that are crisscrossing everywhere. And what is our purpose in life? Our purpose in life is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. But our purpose in life, if we are ignoring entirely this economic aspect to our purpose in life, if we are earning haram, if we are investing in haram, if we are ignoring our money and neglecting it, if we are buying and selling things in an impermissible way, and then we turn up to the masjid and we make dua, and then we ask, how is our dua, why is my dua not being accepted? We can understand why our dua would not be accepted. And this is, I am paraphrasing a hadith of Prophet ﷺ who says this exact same thing about a man whose dress and his clothing and his drinking, all of these things were haram. And then he raised his hands in dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Prophet ﷺ said, how can this dua be accepted when this person is doing this? So the final thing that I would say to you is that after this conversation that we've had, go away and have a think about your own personal finances. Have a sit down and have a plan, right? Firstly, is everything I'm doing halal? Okay, great. If it's not, let's fix that. Next thing, what am I actually doing? Like, what are my goals with my money? Write those down. Next thing after that, now I'm going to start implementing it. And give yourself 2 weeks and do that, right? Don't leave it, because that's the other big issue that we have. We just leave this kind of thing and we never get to it. So set yourself that goal and then go out and do that. Jazakallahu khairan, and inshallah we'll take any questions.